Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. On Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Welcome to Inspired Conversations. I'm your host, Linda Joy, publisher of Aspire Magazine, Mindset Elevation Coach, and I love bringing you conversations that guide you deeper into understanding yourself. And, one of the things I think we could all use a little more of these days is compassion. Compassion for ourselves, compassion for others. And that's why I'm really excited to bring you today's guest. Dr. Adelman is here to teach us and talk about mind-body intelligence, which is a path to deepen compassion for ourselves and others. It's also a path to manage stress and anxiety in ways that promote healing for everyone. She is a licensed psychologist who has been in clinical practice for over 40 years. She's been practicing and studying mindfulness meditation for the past 20 years. She's the author of Mind Body Intelligence, a guide to nurturing compassion inside and out. She's the founder of PsyCare Solutions and the Sage Healing Institute, which is dedicated to the relief of both psychological and physical suffering through the integration of traditional Western psychology and the principles of Buddhist psychology. This treatment program and approach is called Mind Body Intelligence. Welcome, Dr. Ellen.
Thank you very much, Linda.
So I'm curious, I have your book in my hand. For one, the cover just draws you right in, like, peace. But I'm curious, what was the journey for you personally and professionally to developing the mind-body intelligence path, modality, trainings?
Okay, good question. So I've always been interested in spirituality, and psychology is the study of the psyche, the spirit, the soul, we might say. And I um, became aware of a workshop at the Cape Cod Institute many years ago, and it was on psychology and spirituality. And I'd never seen such a thing. So I was very excited to go. Cape Cod Institute was a lovely experience. We got to be in the seminar 5 mornings, and the rest of the time we were on our own. And I love Cape Cod, so it worked out really well. And the course was taught by a psychoanalyst, a psychologist, and a nun. And they were talking to us about incorporating spirituality into our practice, and to encourage us to talk with our patients about their spiritual life, because this is a resource. And so I learned more about meditation and mindfulness in that class, and I was very excited, and went forth to go to many, many seminars and work with many different teachers, both Buddhist and Jewish, who were talking about meditation and mindfulness practice, including Pema Chodron, who wrote The Wisdom of No Escape, and Thich Nhat Hanh. And those two have been my masters, I would say, having the greatest influence on my work. Both of them are very psychologically savvy, which resonated for me. They were clearly both interested in how does spirituality and psychology fit together. And so that was the beginning of a long journey. And as a psychologist, I always want to see if I can have as much impact and help as many people as possible. And so I began teaching and presenting at conferences and teaching mind body intelligence as a modality for therapy. And that's been lovely too.
That is so beautiful. I always love how our journey naturally unfolds when we follow the signs, like when you saw the event at the Cape Cod venue, that you just said, "Ooh, this resonates." It's like I feel like our paths are always we're being led.
Hmm.
And how would you describe for those listening what is mind body intelligence?
Okay. So, mind body intelligence is the integration of Western psychology and Buddhist psychology. And many people are not aware of the influence that Buddhist psychology has in our lives. But I think a good example is the book "Don't Sweat the Small Stuff." So it has informed our folk culture in many ways, and certainly mindfulness has become a part of our natural lexicon. People talk about it all the time. So, so the way it works is we we begin to notice our inner world, um, and and to develop a sense of what is going on inside of us. And MBI offers sorry, offers a path to do that. We identify our inner characters and we learn to be able to talk with them and invite them to help us and to work with us in ways that are helpful rather than harmful. So, one example of this is the critical witness, which everybody recognizes and everybody has one. And this is our inner voice that comments on how we're doing, um, and and uh, and what's happening and the choices we're making all day long, and sometimes even while we're asleep. And the critical witness can be very difficult for us because that part of us can be demeaning and derogatory. And everyone knows that people thrive and do best in an environment of loving kindness and compassion. And so having this critical voice, and depending on who you are and how you were raised, probably, it's more or less, but having it go on all the time interferes with our self esteem and our ability to navigate in helpful ways through life. So, one of the first things we do in MBI is we learn to recognize our critical witness, listen to that voice when it shows up, and insist on a kinder voice. And the foundation practice for this is a meditation practice. And it's concentration meditation where we sit and we focus on the breath and we see about refraining from striving and judgment and criticism. And when we hear the critical witness, oh, you can't do this, you have too many thoughts, you're not good at this, other people are better, you should get a mindfulness app. Um, we ask that voice to talk to us like we're somebody they love. So, I'll listen to you, critical witness, but not if you're going to be mean and not if you're going to be critical. See about letting me know what your concern is in a nicer way. And it actually happens. And most people feel like, oh, well, I have this negative voice all the time and there's nothing I can do about it. I'm stuck with it. But it's actually not the case. The critical witness is able to transform into a benevolent witness with our help. And so we use meditation, and certainly concentration meditation is our foundation practice. And we also work with the body mind. So, and that is one of our characters. And again, this is a character that people aren't really conversant with. It's really fascinating that we treat our body mind as a sort of a second class citizen, and we can be very disparaging and dismissive because, again, we feel like there's nothing we can do. So I have a headache. Oh, God, I've got a headache, another headache. What is going on with me? Why is this happening? Let me go take something. And we don't realize the power of sitting in concentration meditation and and sending loving kindness and tenderness to the part of our body that is suffering. And it
Mm.
actually has a powerful, powerful effect. So we're putting all that together, and then last but not least, we incorporate qigong into the practice, which is the parent tradition of Tai Chi and Kung Fu, and it allows us to meditate in ways that are healing. It has a lot of its roots in traditional Chinese medicine. So it's mindful movement and meditation together with the intention of creating a healthier being. And so those are the things that come together in a nutshell for MBI.
It sounds so beautiful. I was listening, writing notes, like critical witness in my mind reminds me of what I may refer as the inner critic. And
Hmm.
then I was writing down the different characters. We're going to take our first break, Dr. Ellen. And
Okay.
when we come back, I want to talk about some of those other inner characters to help our audience understand how they may show up. Like I have an inner goddess, I have an inner critic, and I'd love to hear more about those characters that we all have. So we'll be back in a moment, my friends. Please visit Dr. Ellen at sagehealinginstitute.com. All her details are in the show notes, and we'll be back with more.
Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
We can all use a little more peace and joy in our lives. Don't you agree? Counselor, best-selling author, and self-nurturing expert Kelly Grimes of cultivatingpeaceandjoy.com is passionate about empowering overwhelmed and exhausted women to live with more peace, joy, and meaning through the practice of self-nurturing. Through her experience working with individuals, speaking, providing workshops, and teaching professional and leadership development to forward-thinking organizations, Kelly knows that nurturing peace in the world begins from the inside out. That's why she created the free Cultivating Peace and Joy mobile app that brings you beautiful self-nurturing reminders, guided meditations, empowering practice tools, and daily prompts with an inspiring question to guide your daily self-nurturing practice. Download your free Cultivating Peace and Joy mobile app today at cultivatingpeaceandjoy.com.
Consistently attract soulmate clients, begin showing up on brand, monetizing on your calling. Welcome all spiritual coaches, leaders, healers, light workers, and practitioners to a show that turns you on in your business and amplifies your magnetism. I'm host, catalyst, and spiritual business coach Rosalind Fung, and I'm here to journey with you into the juicy and help you discover where the real gaps are. Ignite your mindset and soul with strategies and systems as each episode takes you to the sweet spot that activates your soulgasmic business by tuning in on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Mountain. Join me for your light language activation and let's magnetize and monetize.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back. You're listening to Inspired Conversations. With me today is Dr. Ellen Adelman of sagehealinginstitute.com and author of Mind Body Intelligence, a guide to nurturing compassion inside and out. Ellen, as you were speaking before, I was writing all my notes, and so I was right before the break. I mentioned that, like, I know I have the inner critic that's I've been loving and nurturing for probably the last 20 years because she used to be very harsh, and I have an inner goddess. What are some of the other characters internally that may show up.
Okay. So, yes, the critical witness certainly is very important. And as we do this work, and I can hear it in your description, Linda, that you've done this, the critical witness begins to transform into the benevolent witness. And that is described as really our own internal best friend, a part of us that can be objective and see us in a way that's not critical, so that it's, you know, the example I like to give is I cut myself shaving, and you know, critical witness is going to say, "Oh my God, look what you've done." You know, that's awful, and look at that blood, and is it going to stop bleeding, and how stupid, and what were you thinking, etc. And it could go on. Um, and benevolent witness is going to say, "Oh, look at that. You know, we cut ourselves. Well, I guess I have to do something about that. Yes, look at that good, healthy red blood. Okay, and what's the next right thing? And I've got to clean that up, and then, you know, I'm going to think about what do I need to do to prevent that from happening next time. Well, maybe I was distracted, maybe I was stressed, maybe I need to make a pact with myself to not be thinking about other things, to really focus on shaving in a way that's not going to injure myself." So that's an example of benevolent witness. Um, Very important character. And we also identify a couple other important people. One of them is Dragon. And Dragon is the character that we experience when we're anxious. And so, Dragon, we see Dragon in the imagery that I like to use is he gets as big as a float in a Macy's Day Parade, and he inflates himself, and he breathes smoke and fire, you know, and he catastrophizes. And so our task in working with this character is, first of all, to breathe, because that allows us to refrain from being in the sympathetic fight or flight state, and then to um, to talk to him and say, "All right, look, I know I know this situation is triggering painful, precious memories, and I'm going to listen to you, but you have to shrink down to your normal size, and you've got to stop with the smoke and fire and catastrophizing, and I'll listen to you. I'll listen to what you have to say." And it's amazing, but it happens. And most of my folks who participate in MBI talk about their dragon shrinking down to the size of a small or medium-sized dog. And they like to think of their dragon as a dog that needs help. He needs direction. He needs some loving kindness, but he also needs some limits. And then we can ask, well, what are the painful, precious memories that are triggering you? And okay, I understand that's a situation, and yeah, that did happen before, but that was then, and this is now. And so Dragon can calm down, and then we can see about handling the situation as best we can with all our faculties, because when the sympathetic system is activated, we can't think clearly. So that's another important character. Um, there's inner mother, there's inner father, and we can interact with them um, in helpful ways. And so those are some of the other people, and then people identify um, other characters like child self, and we talk in the mind body intelligence workbook. We talk about the two characters that get involved when we think about meditating, and one is I'm all for it, and the other is nah, I don't feel like it. And the way that we work with them, honoring both characters to see what it is they have to say, and then we can make a decision about what is the next right thing. So those are just a few.
I love this because energetically I could connect with each one as you were sharing them. And I love how you converse with them, and especially like the dragon, especially these days, there's so much anxiety and stress and worry. And when you did the visual of the Macy's parade, I'm like, oh, I know that little guy, well, big guy. But but also I've learned that, especially I struggled with severe anxiety and depression for 35 of my 63 years. And so when you gave me that visual, I immediately remembered what it felt like when that dragon was so big and loud and frightening. And now it is, for myself anyway, it is like that puppy dog that just needs some training. That wants some love and nurturing. And sometimes, when it rears up for me, I speak to it with love and say, I understand that you're afraid. And but I'm going to move forward anyway. I will listen to you, but you can't lead the way.
Right.
And having that inner conversation and journaling to my fears, to my anxiety, or I guess as you call the dragon, has been life changing for me because, and I'm assuming you've seen this in your practice. I used to run from my anxiety and fear. So what happens when you run? The dragon chases you,
Right.
right? So
Right.
is that, does that resonate with you've seen too? When we go inward instead of running from it, we then have the power to transform it and transmute it.
Right. Right. Well, so, MBI also relies on some principles of Buddhist psychology, and those include the Four Noble Truths. And one of the Four Noble Truths says that what causes us suffering is clinging and aversion, which is exactly what you're talking about, Linda. Is when we run away from things, it causes us more suffering. So, as counterintuitive as it may be to embrace our dragon, that's the thing that's going to help us heal and feel better. And I like to say, everybody wants to be heard. Everybody wants to be heard, our external characters and our internal characters. And it's okay for us as our identified selves or our adult characters to be able to set some limits. So listen, little guy, now that he's shrunk down, I'm going to hear your concerns. I will listen to you, but you can't behave in these ways. So calm down, talk to me, calmly and meaningfully, and I will listen, and then I will address whatever problem it is you're concerned about. And this compassion and limits is a beautiful thing. And it, of course, not only works in our internal world, but it works in our external world as well. And the more we do it internally, the more we're able to do it externally.
It's beautiful and powerful, and it just resonates on a soul level with me of compared to how I used to live in complete avoidance, running, um, just not wanting to face what was uncomfortable. And then, of course, it just kept growing into the size of a dragon that's in the Macy's Day Parade. And so I just love that because I'm a visual person. So as you were sharing that part of the dragon, I have a feeling there's many other visuals here, and they're like, oh, yes, that's what happens with me. So we're going to take our next break, and I want to come back and talk about some of the language we use every day, how it influences how we behave and increases our suffering. And my friends, we will be back in a moment. I am with Dr. Ellen Adelman of SageHealingInstitute.com, and we'll be right back.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. Times Radio. FM.
Are you ready to create and live the divinely guided life intended for you? A life not bound by your past or tied to a specific future. A life beyond your fears and what-ifs that is filled with limitless possibilities. Experiencing an empowered life of fulfillment, joy, and connection is possible when you embrace a spiritual, solutions-centered lifestyle. Through her transformational teachings and programs, Lisa Hermata, empowered Life View Guide, life transformation mentor, and founder of Love is the Seed, empowers women to break the barriers holding them back from living their sacred truth so they can find greater connection with their inner wisdom and their divine source to co-create a life that brings peace, joy, and self-acceptance. Visit loveistheseed.com for positive guidance and valuable resources to support you in embracing an empowered life view.
If I could be you,
and you could be me for just 1 hour.
If you could find a way
to get inside
each other's mind.
walk a mile in my shoes.
walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out, and for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of Times Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of Times. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. Times Radio, IOM FM.
You're listening to Inspired Conversations. Thanks for joining me. I'm Linda Joy, and with me today is Dr. Ellen Adelman of Sage Healing Institute and author of Mind Body Intelligence. And, you know, I was reading in your book that mind body intelligence actually enables you to decrease stress and anxiety, which we were just talking about with the dragon story, connect with your own warrior heart. And when I read that phrase, I was like, oh, I love that phrase. Increase your happiness in each present moment, improve your physical health, and so much more. So one of the things is I'm always saying there's power in our words. And I teach my clients in my mindset community, like, watch the scripts you're telling yourself, because I feel it's either crafting your happiness or your unhappiness. So could you share how our language does influence us?
Okay. So our brains are designed to think about the world dualistically, you know, black and white. And we do this all the time. I like this, I don't like that. I only like vanilla, I won't eat chocolate. And this is good and this is bad. And also, you know, the language of striving, I think, really separates us from the present moment. And the famous quote from Yoda, who says to Luke Skywalker in Star Wars, there is no try, there is only do or not do. So, so we, you know, we focus on that, and every time we sit to meditate, we set the intention of refraining from striving, judgment, and criticism, because these actions actually separate us from the moment, and of course that increases suffering. So the other practice that's important here is equanimity, and by that I mean actually realizing that things are not dual. So one could say, oh, I had a bad meditation session. Oh, well, what was bad about that? Well, I had a lot of thoughts, and you know, I really never felt serene. And in equanimity practice, we're going to say, well, what was the benefit to you? What benefit did you experience? Oh, because once you say it's bad, that's it. We've written it off. It's all done. It's all gone. And it just goes on the list of not nice things that happened to me today. Whereas if we're open to the reality of the moment, okay, well, I noticed that I had a lot of thoughts. I noticed that I was thinking about things that are unresolved for me. I noticed that when I focused on the breath, I felt better. Wow, so those are some benefits I experienced. So maybe I don't want to label this a bad meditation experience. I want to just label it for what it was. And I learned something, and I experienced something of benefit, which exists in everything, even the most difficult things. And so language has a lot to do with how we feel, um, because we tend to follow it in our assessment of what is healthful, helpful, hopeful, and it influences everything. There's a lovely Buddhist saying that I am fond of. It says, "Do not mistake the finger pointing at the moon for the moon."
Mm.
So this thing that, we call the moon is way more than these 4 letters. And whatever imagery we have attached to it. It's way more than that. And to enter into that is a very liberating and sometimes a spiritual experience. And so that's what can be encouraged when we see about refraining from dualistic thinking. So that in a nutshell.
Yeah, and that black and white thinking too, and I mean, we've all been there. It just keeps us so limited because it just keeps us limited in our own view of the world, of our situation, etc. Where what you just beautifully described, having that conversation and understanding that it's so much more than just black and white. I thought that was powerful, so I appreciate that. What are the physical benefits of the mind body intelligence practices and why tapping into the breath is so important?
Okay, I'm glad you asked me that. Over the years, I've had lots of experience with people they'll come, for therapy, and they'll say, "Oh, I have a meditation practice." Okay, tell me about that, and what's that like for you? And how about the breath? And often people would say, "Oh, no one said anything to me about that." Um, and sometimes people say, "Oh, well, I've been told to take a deep breath and hold it for 8 counts." Sometimes people say that too. And so there's a lot of misinformation out there still about the breath. So wow. So in the book, there's a whole chapter on the body mind, and speaking of visually, um, one of the things that we do in that chapter is take a little miniaturized submarine trip through the body to see what happens when our anxiety and stress-filled states are triggered. And so we learn about, the sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight, flight, or freeze system. And we learn about the parasympathetic, which allows us to have endorphins and serotonin and growth hormone, cell repair, enhancement of the immune system. And the way our physiology is designed, it's both of those systems cannot be active at the same time. It's one is on and one is inhibited. And people tend to think of it in a different way, that like, oh, it's my, sleep system is off and that's why I can't fall asleep. It's actually your awake system is on and your sleep system is inhibited. And one thing that is so important and so central to the practice and to mindfulness practice in general is that when we breathe in this particular way, diaphragmatic breathing, which means that the chest doesn't move, but the belly expands as we breathe in and relaxes as we breathe out. That kind of breathing is tied forever to the parasympathetic nervous system. So when we are breathing diaphragmatically, we are in this lovely state of serenity and self-care and calm and feeling good and physiological repair. And when we are in a sympathetic state, all sorts of other things are going on. The production of stress hormones and all of these sugars and corticosteroids get dumped into the bloodstream, and there they sit until we do something active to get rid of them, which means running away or fighting. So, when we sit to meditate, we learn to focus on the breath. That allows us to anchor ourselves into this moment. And it also provides this wonderful healing environment in our inner world. Then that becomes associated with meditating and also with feeling safe. And that feeling of safety allows us to explore our inner world. So this is the mind-body connection, and it's very powerful. And the fact, again, that we can have some influence and some agency with our body mind and say, no, no, let's not do that sympathetic thing. Here's a way through it so that we can come back to the parasympathetic and enjoy whatever benefits that has to offer us.
This resonates. I'll tell you a quick story. I've been with my honey for 30 years, and I've lived a very full life, let's say that. So trauma, runaway, high school dropout, welfare mom, and then transformed my life 30 years ago. But I remember when we first started dating, we'd be watching TV and he'd suddenly go, "Hey," I go, "What?" He goes, "You're holding your breath again." And then I just,
Mhm.
I had a pattern for 30 something years, and sometimes it can still happen, where I was always holding my breath without even knowing I was holding my breath. There was such a pattern. Do you feel like that one habit, I guess is the word, was from childhood, like always being on guard, always waiting for the other shoe to drop? I just love your thoughts on it. Most of the time, I'm more conscious now, but if there's a lot going on in life, I'll have that tendency and I'll catch myself.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that origination?
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm sure it's from childhood and, it's associated with being vigilant. What harmful thing is going to come at me next? And let me prepare for that. So, interestingly, in traditional Chinese medicine, the answer to the question, where is anxiety located in the body, is the lungs.
Yeah, that's where I feel it. That's
Right,
where I
right,
feel it. Constriction, tightness, solar plexus area also.
right. So that,
That really resonates with me. And I he used to have to say it 3, 4, 5 times a day.
mm,
Now he hardly ever says it, but and sometimes I'll catch myself if I'm in one of that doing mode, or we got changes going on in the life. But yeah, it was a pattern for a long, long time. I had to be really conscious and be present in my body.
mm-hmm,
Because of course, as a child, I wasn't present in my body because I couldn't be.
right.
And so
So
everything you talk about,
I'm
that
gonna
mind body.
I'm gonna suggest something to you.
Of course, please.
So what you might do, as you sit in concentration meditation, is talk to your body mind and explain to her that you're safe and that she really doesn't need to do that so much anymore, and send some loving kindness and tenderness, um, even to your lungs, to wherever it feels like that resides, and that will be a healing thing.
That is so beautiful. Thank you. I so appreciate that. really resonates. And there's no accidents, right? That I needed this part of the conversation too. So we're going to take our final break, my friends, and we'll be back with Dr. Ellen Adelman of SageHealingInstitute.com. Be sure to visit her, check out the show notes, get a copy of her book, which we'll talk more about in the final segment. We'll be right back.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Life quakes or life transitions and the aftershocks that follow are something we all experience. A life quake can stem from the heartbreaking grief that arises from the loss of a loved one or the disorientation felt when life suddenly shifts due to the loss of a job, relationship, identity, or health challenge. Learning to navigate these transitions with mindfulness, grace, and self-compassion is the key to finding your way back to joy, happiness, and inner peace. Advanced Grief Recovery Method Specialist and Certified Life Transition Coach Amy Lindner Lesser, MSW, expertly supports clients to navigate their life quakes and transitions with warmth, kindness, and grace. Learning to accept support as you navigate your way through the aftershocks is one of the most powerful gifts you can give yourself. Learn more at introspection.com. That's introspection.com.
More than 24 million Americans have an autoimmune disorder, and that number continues to grow. I'm Sharon Saylor, and I'm one of those 24 million. To put that number in perspective, cancer affects about 9 million and heart disease up to 22 million. That's why I've brought together top experts and those thriving regardless of their diagnosis to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information. Join me, Sharon Saylor, Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, for the Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio to find out how to live your life uninterrupted.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Free your mind with Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Thanks for joining us. You're listening to Inspired Conversations. Dr. Adelman, one of the things I want to mention about your book is that it includes a workbook that offers the basic 8-week guide to establishing your integrated MBI practice. We can track our progress, record observations. I just love that you included all of that to help guide us on this journey.
Thank you.
And so the title is A Guide to Nurturing Compassion Inside and Out. And I started the show in introducing you that, sometimes compassion, we lose it for others, but we even lose our own self-compassion. So how does MBI help us offer compassion to ourselves, others, in the world?
Okay. So, it's one of the interesting things that I've encountered over the years is that when I talk to participants about compassion, they'll say, I can be compassionate to others, but not to myself. And it's very interesting in a textbook on psychotherapy and mindfulness. The authors made this conclusion, which I had trouble with, which was, oh no, Americans are not good at that. We can't offer compassion to ourselves, but it's okay to start with offering compassion to others. And, I have a lot of problems with that.
Yeah.
So, so this work, it resides within us, and then it flows outward into the world. And so we might wind up, and we talk about this in the book too, feeling pity for somebody, which is really different from compassion. Pity means that other person has some problem that I don't, and therefore I feel pity for them. It separates us from the other person because really we're all one. And what distresses or hurts someone else also hurts us. So one of the practices that is employed in MBI is called Tonglen. It comes from it's a Buddhist practice, and it's also very counterintuitive because what it involves is addressing a particular incident that may have caused distress or difficulty or hurt. And as we sit in concentration meditation, breathing in that pain, um, and we might even use words like, it really hurt me when that person made fun of me. Um, I feel so small when that happens. It's so uncomfortable for me. And we're breathing that in. And it's interesting, people say, why would I want to breathe that in? Well, it's in there already. So all you're doing is taking care of it by acknowledging it and not running away from it. And so I breathe that in, but on my out breath, I send loving kindness and tenderness to my own heart. And that heals me. And that makes me someone who can offer kindness and loving compassion to somebody else. And so the part two of Tonglen is, oh, I had this interaction with someone that didn't feel good. So first I offer compassion to myself, and then I can sit with their difficulty. So what was the thing that was causing this behavior? Oh, that person doesn't feel very good about themselves. That's why they need to make fun of someone else. And I breathe that in and I send loving kindness to that person's heart. And it is so powerful and so healing. And I'll tell you a quick little story. The very first time I did this, I was having some ongoing little issue with my husband, um, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to do Tonglen with him. So I sat and I did my concentration meditation, which we need always to begin with, and I did some Tonglen. And that felt really nice. And about 3 days later, he says to me, "Hey, I need to talk to you." And I said, "Yeah, what's going on?" He said, "I am feeling so close to you. What are you doing?"
I believe in energy. I believe in intention. And to me, that's what he was feeling, right?
Right,
No
absolutely.
judgment. No, he was feeling love and compassion and acceptance instead of judgment and anger. And I'm a big energy believer, so that just touched my heart because I know it works.
It
And
does.
here's
And
what's
there's a
beautiful.
whole, yeah, there's a whole realm of these things that they're not quantifiable. You can't put them in a jar, you can't touch them, but we know they're real. And so MBI has a lot of that.
And what that story shared touched me is we I'll speak I used to be in fear and anxiety, especially about loved ones. Oh my God, and what if this? And oh my God, what if that? You know, in my 30s when I was really struggling. And when I came to learn about intention and energy, I realized, oh my goodness, they're going to feel that. And why would I want to send that energy to them? So as part of my healing, in switching my self-talk, every time I would feel myself putting anxiety or worry energy towards someone I love, I would immediately put my hand on my heart and flip the script and send, they are divinely supported, or I'd talk my soul to their soul. If they were going through a difficult time, you are so loved, you are stronger than you believe. It not only helped me transmute my anxiety and my pattern of obsessive worrying about loved ones back then, it gave me inner peace. But what I realized is that was my gift to them. Like your husband received that energetically without you having to have that conversation and all of that. It was just pure love and intention. Is that
Yeah.
how you process it too?
Yeah, that's gorgeous, Linda. I love your example, and it's so beautiful. And it really does have an impact. It has an impact on us in lowering our anxiety and helping us come back to center and to be able to see, what's real and what is the next right thing to do, you know. And it also helps the other person. And it's a gorgeous thing. It's really
Well,
lovely.
think about what your husband felt, right? He felt your shift in your own consciousness and heart space energy. It's like, to me, that is like, we all have the power to do that, right?
Exactly.
And I want to invite everyone, be sure to grab a copy of Mind, Body, Intelligence, A Guide to Nurturing Compassion Inside Out. There are so many practices in here, and I love that the workbook is at the end. Is there a couple other details you want to share about the book? And do you have a recommendation of how to work through the book?
Uh, that's a good question. Well, one thing, let me mention, we have Mind Body Intelligence classes. They're online. And the benefit of that is that you can have these experiences in person with some guidance and also with some community. And so that's a lovely thing, and those are available um, in an ongoing way. And as I said, they're online, they're on Zoom, and they're I don't turn anybody away, but insurance will cover. Most insurances will cover, and also there's a way to pay out of pocket. But the point is that it's a resource that's available for people who feel that it's difficult to do something on their own. But the workbook is really helpful in terms of how to start and looking at the various practices and giving you a chance to write down the things that you notice kindly, um, and how to begin working with your critical witness. There's even basic Qigong practices and also a list of objects, things that will support you, like cushions or back jacks, um, and how you need to set up your meditation space and all of that good stuff.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I want to invite everyone to find out about those online classes, the schedules. Be sure to connect with her at sagehealinginstitute.com. Join her email list, grab her offerings there, stay connected, because we can all use a little more compassion for others as well as compassion for ourselves. And Dr. Ellen, I'm so grateful for you joining me today. I had so many ahas personally, as well as the ahas you shared that I know are touching our audience right now. I'm so glad that I had a chance to start reading a copy of your book. It is powerful, my friend. So thanks for being such a light in the world, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me, Linda. It's really a great pleasure to meet you and an honor to be invited to your show.
Well, thank you, Dr. Ellen. And until next time, my friends, choose love, choose joy, choose happiness. Blessings, everyone.
Thanks for listening to Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. Join our sacred space every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern and meet leading female visionaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. Inspired Conversations with Linda Joy is a soulful venue where guests share the obstacles they've overcome, along with wisdom and lessons learned on their personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic and soulful living.